Today I want to discuss a little bit an old thing, the theme of active vs passive learners, and something about teaching and learning, schools and alternatives. As you might know, in old times, back in the beginning of the 20th century and the end of the 19th century, there was the Industrial Revolution taking place. At that time, big enterprises needed a lot of manpower, and they needed to train manpower so that people would be able to do their jobs properly. At that time, lots of schools have been created for the general population to learn, and that was actually a very good thing, I think. But the model for teaching and for learning was mostly about repetition. They would perform repetitive tasks in factories in many different places. They had to learn some basics of theory and some basics of practices, and they would then do predictable jobs for a long time in their lives. Those were the premises in a way. But if we think about what is going on today, everything changed to some extent. We still have lots of huge corporations, lots of big companies that still need someone to be there, to perform, to do their jobs properly. But we see that the general knowledge level of the global population did increase, although still with major differences in different areas of the globe, of course. And we also see that jobs are changing in such a fast rate that they are no longer predictable. I have no clue about what I might be doing in 10 years from now. In lots of different areas, jobs are becoming extinct, new jobs are created. We have machinery doing lots of stuff that previously humans would have to do. We have computers, we have big communication networks. But major corporations still want to predict consumer behavior, and they still want to control what we learn. They don't want us to become such expert learners. They like to have predictable consumers, so they want to control to some extent what we learn and what we don't learn, and how we learn, and even how the way we learn it will condition our minds and our future. But indeed, generally speaking, we have big differences in the job market, unpredictability. So we, the people, we must adapt to change. We must become expert learners so we can adapt to all sorts of changes, to all sorts of differences in our old jobs and all sorts of new jobs. And of course, we want to be free. We want to think with our own mind. We want to know more. We want to be creative, not just repetitive and predictable. But then again, big corporations are still trying to control the way we learn, what we can learn and how. And they don't want us to be so creative, so free in our mind. They don't want us to think in creative, different and new ways. They don't want us to take charge of our lives because they need predictable consumers to some extent. They want to be able to predict what we want to buy and how and what amount, and which one of us will buy what from them. In a way, they still like the old teaching ways that are repetitive. They still like, to some extent, old schools with classrooms where people are placed in rows. There is the side of the teacher and there is the side of the students. Somehow, even in the way we are learning through the internet, this is repeating itself. But we can do it differently, and we have all the possibilities for that. Because now, a huge amount of knowledge is available everywhere thanks to the internet and to the way each one of us can now produce its own movie, share knowledge to very far places instantaneously. And modern learners, some of them at least, are become experts in finding their own information, in developing their own skills, thinking with their own minds, in being masters of their own rhythm for learning. And this to me is fantastic. It's amazing how this is happening. So mostly we are developing virtual classrooms, but not even that in many ways. In a way, we don't need classrooms. We need materials for learning. We need available knowledge. We need people who are very good at sharing their knowledge, and we have plenty of those around. And we don't need to be predictable. We need to be creative. We need to indeed think outside the box. This is something extremely necessary nowadays. We see control mechanisms, programming mechanisms from our minds being developed everywhere. I see colleagues of mine who have sold their minds to big companies, teaching them how to program minds and how to influence them and predict their behavior through algorithms. I have seen colleagues in many areas of knowledge selling their minds to help big companies becoming able to influence and manipulate behavior from consumers. Something that, of course, I don't like. I like humans to be free. And what can we do? We can indeed become expert learners. We can help our children become like that also. But mostly, we want to teach our children how to manage their minds. If they become able to self-manage their minds, they increase their amount of freedom. They increase their amount of self-responsibility. And this is something absolutely necessary. But on the opposite side, we see many young students unable to manage their minds. They are controlled by the gaming industry. They are losing their ability to really focus on something. They are used to be distracted almost all the time. They are used to pursue illusions in the shape of games. And many of them, they are also used to use communication networks of all sorts, such as Facebook, such as Instagram and many others. And those networks also manipulate people, the kind of information available. They can censor a lot. And we have algorithms for repetition of who we think we are. We have bought something, then the industry is showing us lots of the same thing. We showed interest in some kind of an article, some kind of information, and we are flooded by that kind of information again. So we are kept inside our little capsules without really being available to humanity and aware of humanity and aware of the whole world. We have most of the time no access to what is really going on because the mass media are owned by corporations also, and they repetitively they send us back the same kinds of information. Nowadays with COVID we are kept in horror to some extent, and we have lots of that. But horror can help sell vaccines of very doubtful efficacy. We don't really know what is inside of them. We don't really know probably what they can do to us. We don't know to what extent they are really going to do their job properly, but we know they will bring huge profit to Big Pharma. So my message and my appeal is for everyone to notice that we need a new generation of learners. We need students who can self-manage their minds, who can focus, who can be aware of how they learn, how to manage their memory. They can be sophisticated about filtering and showing the kind of information they want to insert in their minds. We need students who know how to self-manage emotions and mostly consciousness, so that they are set free to some extent. They have better, deeper choices, and they can adapt to a very fast evolving market. They can adapt to whatever changes will come. They can adapt to new jobs. They can find their own ways to be happy. And this is the message for the moment. Thanks for listening and for watching. And if you like this, please share, comment, and follow the channel.